Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a prototype preview for a game called Freezing Inferno, USSR versus Finland, 1939 to 1940. This is a game that's coming to Kickstarter here pretty soon. I was sent a prototype from the great folks at Princeps games. I wanted to show you what you have to look forward to. To give you a background on the game, this is what the back of the box will say when there is back of the box text. Freezing Inferno is a 1- or 2-player war game set in World War II covering the 1939 to 1940 conflict between the USSR and Finland. It is a hex and counter game with unique battle mechanisms, a lot of strategy, some diplomacy, and a number of features specific to the harsh winter conditions of the setting. Freezing Inferno is a medium level complexity and lasts from 3 to 6 hours. Variable setup and random cards bringing effects to the game offers great replayability. So let's crack this one open and we'll take a closer look at the components and we will talk a little bit more about the game. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice when we open this box is how big this box is. This is a 4-inch box, as you can see there, with some really fantastic art. Again, on the front cover, beautiful art. Finnish flag on the right side, Soviet flag on the left side. We've got some rules that were printed out on regular paper, because again, this is a prototype. Got a pad of maps here. This is pretty neat because you're going to, both sides are going to set up their counters right here, and then you're going to set them up together. So that way you have kind of like a blind setup. Got our counter sheets, mounted map, and then these individual boxes, again, prototype this is. These are all made out of chipboard, not made out of MDF or anything like that. Pretty much what you'd expect when you get a finished product. They're going to be like MDF or maybe foam core. These are just chipboard, but it's a prototype. It's what's to be expected, but I love the concept they're going for here. We're going to pull these out because they're in pretty tight. We're going to pull these out and there are more components inside. All right, so I pulled all the boxes out and now we'll take a look at each of these boxes. When you open them up, I think this is where they're going to want to put the Soviet pieces in here. Same for the Finnish. And you can see these are chipboard. And we've got some dice, some play money, which is something a little different to see in a war game. And we've got some cards. And then in the big box here, we've got some player mats, player aid sheets, things like that. You've got your air-to-ground combat results table, meteorology, espionage, sabotage tables, initial operations round 1, round 2 through 8. First thing I'm noticing is these, we'll get a close-up and you'll see yourself. I think these fonts need to be adjusted a little bit because, again, it's a prototype, but it's a little difficult to read these. And I know don't have the youngest eyes there is, but it seems like it's really tight together. Maybe they could spread it out a little more, maybe use a different font to make it easier to read. But like I said, we'll take a closer look at all these components and you'll see for yourself what I'm talking about. So I'll set up the map and we'll take a look at the rest of the game. And here's a look at the mounted map that comes with the prototype. I'm going to show it first portrait and then I'm going to turn to landscape so you can get a better look at it. And it doesn't get everything in frame here, but at the bottom left we have the diplomacy track. On the left hand side, this is the national military capacity track, which is how you're going to keep track of the cities that you own for both sides, both Finland and the Russians. And each city has a military capacity number. That's what the numbers are in them. You also have some cities, 3 of them, that are starred, and those are key cities for Finland. For the Russians, we have the same thing. We have 7 cities and they have a military capacity value. At the top, what you can't see right now are the attack modifiers, and that's one of the things we're going to look at when I turn it sideways. But all that information on the map aside, first impressions, I'm not really crazy about this map. I see what they're trying to do with the forests and stuff like that in the cities, trying to give it a 3D feel like it's kind of popping up off the map. But first impression is it almost looks like Candyland with hexes on top of it. It does not have a war game feel. It does not scream war game to me. And that is unfortunate, because I think when you have a layout like this, you don't want to get lost in having really cool art and not being able to get across the terrain, which is really important. You have your cities, you have your forests, you have your lakes. You also have airfields, and you're supposed to have mountains and hills. I can see the mountains at the top. I guess some of them are supposed to be also considered hills. I'm not sure. But is this an airfield? It's only one strip. I would assume it is. It's just, it doesn't seem to grab me like a war game. And that's one of the things that perception is key. If people look at a map and they see this on the back of the box and they're a war gamer, they're going to go, probably not going to be attracted to it, because it's going to have, like I said, that hobby game feel rather than a war game. And I think this is trying to approach this in a respectful and realistic manner. Then it needs to have a map that follows suit, because this kind of makes it look a little too cutesy and not a serious war game. Being a little harsh on it, yeah, but this is in prototype form right now. This is something that can be corrected, and hopefully they will reevaluate it. I'm sure they're real proud of the art, and for some games this would be great art, but for a war game, a hex and counter war game, this isn't really going to be as attractive for most war gamers, I would think. Post down below if you have any comments and think I'm off base here, but that's my impression at first glance right here. So let's turn it sideways, and then we'll take a closer look so you can see a little bit more about what I'm talking about close down on the map. Okay, so now I've got it sideways here, and I'm going to show you the attack modifiers here. You can't really read them because they're facing a portrait instead of landscape. And that's something else to keep in mind. I would think that if you're going to have, and I'm going to assume based on Finland being here and Russia being on the other side, that you're going to have players sitting on either side of the map. These should be facing the players, maybe one on either side, so that way you don't have to crane your head around and try to figure it out. This is fine. You can see this sideways. That's not a big deal. But when it comes to attack modifiers and the diplomacy track, I would say turn that so that way one player at least can see it, if not both players, by having it mirrored on either side. And you've got empty areas where they could fit that on both sides, I think. But now let's take a closer look here and zoom in a little bit, and you can see what I'm talking about with the art. All right, so we're a little closer in now. We've got one of the key cities, and then we've got three of the other cities here. And one of the things I want to point out is when you have these key cities here, they're going to be representing, there's three of them, there's going to be representing the three key cities in Finland, which are Helsinki, Ulo, and Patsamo. Which one is which? They should be labeled, I think, and I know you don't have to label them, because you just remember you need to have one of three key cities, or all three key cities in control, but I think it would be better off having some labels on here so at least you knew which one's which. Part of the reason we wargame is to learn things about the conflict and the area. So by having these cities labeled, I think it would help people understand geography and understand a conflict a little bit better if that was added up to the map. But see what I'm talking about with these trees? I get what they're doing, and it does look pretty cool, but it seems out of place in a war game, in my opinion. That's just, again, my opinion. But first impressions are really critical. When you look at it, if you get turned off of a map, that's a potential gamer that's not going to be reached by a game. So that's something for these guys to think about as they're still in the development phase of this game, maybe looking at altering the map a little bit and taking away some of the cartoony type of feel to it. And also another note here, I'm assuming this is all just clear, because up here, let me slide this down a little bit more. Up here is where you have your mountains, and I'm going to guess these are the hills. They're only going to be impacting up here in the north. They're not going to be anywhere else that I see on the map. We do see a bunch of these airfields. I guess these are supposed to be airfields, one strip airfields. There's two strip airfields as well. But I don't see any hills. And if any of this area is supposed to be hilly, that needs to be distinguished better on the map, because I do see some different tones in the snow, which could just be for artistic effect, or it could be for terrain effect as well. You need to make sure that that is nice and clear on the map. But the palette's good. Just, I'm of the opinion that when you're going to do a war game, that you have a war game map and you stick to having a war game map. This mashup map like this Maybe they're doing it to try to attract hobby gamers as well as war gamers. Well, when you try to do that sort of thing, you're bound to lose one or the other. And I think this definitely needs to be reevaluated, just my opinion. And here's a look at some of the cards that come with the game. You've got a good bit of history on each of these cards. All this text here is all history. It's at the bottom that matters for the gamer. Like here it says finish infantry, +2 movement points. The players reinforce their units. This card, Finland lose 2 times 1 strength infantry. Top right, Soviet bombers are immune to AA fire. One next to that, attack modifier +1 for Soviet air units when attacking the city hex. And then this last one here, units can move through marked coastal hexes, which is 3 movement points a hex. The players reinforce their units. So we've got all this wonderful historical text on the card, and then at the bottom is the actual game effect that will be in use by the players. First thing I noticed, and I'm going to pull it up a little closer so you can see yourself, just like I noticed before with those cards, not the cards, but the mats, the text I think is similar here. It's the same font. It's difficult to read to me. I can read it, but I have to concentrate a little bit more than I would with, say, something a little clearer. And it's really good. I think it's fantastic to have this information there because that's why we war game. We want to learn more about these different conflicts. So definitely have that in there. But I think you've got all that extra space here. I know they want to get this image down here. Well, maybe they can spread this text out a little wider, put a band on it so it stands out from the back of the card a little easier, and then move this text up slightly and use a better font with it and make it more legible. That's just my feedback on this. Again, it's a prototype, so they can adjust these things, which is good. The layout just could use some work, maybe a different font, put a band behind the information for the gameplay, and you're good to go. But those will be the cards that'll be in effect during the game. And here's a look at some of the tables and mats that come with the game. We've got the temperature and effects, icy, very cold, cold, and chilly. Weather conditions, fog, snow, rain, and clear. You're going to have the D10 roll for temperature and a D12 roll for weather conditions. And everything is spaced wide enough apart that you can read it. But again, I know they're going for either period or some other sort of artistic effect with the text, but this is easier to read, but it looks again like they're using that similar font. This is still kind of a little difficult to read, but you're going to see when I'm talking about how this font becomes a little tough to read the further we go along. On the next card, we have meteorology, espionage, sabotage, and technology improvements. Modi tactics, Molotov cocktail, and White Death sniper. Pretty cool seeing Simo Haya in a game. And the next card is for the Soviets. Same thing, meteorology, espionage, sabotage. For the technology improvements, we have the B4 203mm howitzer, KV-2 tank, and the Aerosonic KM5. Next card is the ground-to-ground and air-to-air combat results table. And here's going to give you a breakdown of your strength ratios all the way across. And then it looks like this is going to be the resolution below that. This is a great example. I noticed this one first off when I took a look at it. It's difficult to read this. Here it starts getting a little too condensed. And with the colors, the contrast isn't there as clearly as it could be. And with that real thin font, I just think it's a little difficult to read. Then on the back, we have the air-to-ground combat results table. And on the last card, we have the action sequence giving you initial operations, round 1, rounds 2 through 8, then the unit cost table at the bottom. Again, that font seems a little busy, a little tougher to read than it should be. Then on the back, we have the listing of the CRT abbreviations. Next, we'll take a look through the counter sheets that come with the game. We have the Finnish forces on the left, Soviet forces on the right. Really like the counter art here. You can very easily read every bit of information on the counters and love the images. Really does look sharp. Same thing on the next sheet. Finnish forces on the left and the Soviets on the right. Sheet number 3, sheet number 4, and sheet number 5. Again, the art looks fantastic and pre-rounded counters. That is just outstanding work for these counters in the prototype. And here's the sheet of mini maps that I was telling you about before. Each player is going to write out their starting positions of their forces, and then together will bring their forces to the map and lay them out just like they do here on the sheet. So you've got a hidden setup without having a referee or putting up a board, to hide the two sides of the map. So I think it's pretty cool how they've done that. That's a great little addition and will aid a lot in replayability because you're going to have variable setups based on what the players want to do. And that is a quick look at the prototype components for Freezing Inferno, which is coming from Princeps Games to Kickstarter next month. Now, I've not played this game. Obviously, counters aren't even punched. Just got it in, took a look at it, and wanted to share a prototype preview with you guys so you can see what level of work has been put into the game by Princeps so far. And there's definitely a lot of work that's been done. Counters are fantastic. Love the pre-cut counters, the pre-rounded counters, the beautiful art on them, and easy to read, which is fantastic. The map, not crazy about. The big cards here that have your CRT and everything, I think the font needs to be changed and maybe spread out a little bit. Same for the cards too. That font they're using is a little too narrow and it just seems kind of squished in the card a little bit, especially when all you really care about, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter because all you really care about is down here, but you are missing out if you don't have, if it's not easy to read, you are missing out on this important information, this historical information. We want to know these things about this conflict because we're wargaming it. We want to learn more about it. And I didn't even look at these, the play money here. No need to look at the play money. And then we have the dice. But I really do love the concept of having these boxes that they're going to be using. Again, chipboard just because it's a prototype, but Princeps is definitely on the right track. Really love the idea of plotting your setups in secret and then revealing together as you lay out your units. That's also really cool. So looking forward to getting this on the table and playing it and then sharing my opinions on the gameplay in a future video. But I thought it was important to get the information out now about this so you can get a look at it, see what the prototype is, see the level of work Princeps has put into it already, and then also share my opinion. I think they're on the right track. They just need a little bit of course correction on the map and the fonts. You can add your opinions as well down below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Do you think I'm being a little too harsh on it? Do you think I'm not being harsh enough? Do you think I'm crazy about the map, or do you think I'm crazy about the fonts? Is it just my eyes bad or what? But I thought it was important because this is in prototype form to give an honest evaluation of it here on video so everybody can see it. And that way we can all share our opinions now that you guys have seen it as well. And hopefully, if everyone feels the same way, some adjustments can be made and the game can be a real good success. But look forward to a future video where I'll be talking about the gameplay in the upcoming weeks. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. You have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.